Okay, so this will be the first video in the series of how to use a pricing calculator. This will help you get a good idea of how much time you're actually spending on post-production. So opening the calculator spreadsheet, what you'll want to do is start over in this column here. These are the types of shoots that you do. This will be different for every photographer, whether you do like weddings and portrait sessions or just portraits and so on. Each of these are editable, so if you need to change it and adjust it, by all means, please do. And these are for any types of sessions that I may not have included in my default that you can change and adjust to suit your business. I'm going to start with weddings just to use a simple example because I know that's one area that a lot of photographers spend a lot of time on post-production for. So we'll start with weddings. And do note too that all the time when it asks you how long it takes is in hours. And there's also notes at the bottom of each column in case you need a memory jog for how something works or what you're supposed to put in each column. All of the column spaces that are white, including this one, are editable. All the ones in gray are not because that's where all the calculations take place. So starting with weddings, how long does it take you to shoot a wedding on average? You might have different packages depending on what you offer, and that's okay. Just go with your most popular one. For a lot of photographers, I know that's usually somewhere between 6 and 10 hours. So I'm going to go with 8. And then fill in how many that you shoot per year. Next, think about how long it takes you to cull that wedding. A lot of photographers, it's normally somewhere between 2 and 4 hours. I'm going to say 3. Don't worry about the will I outsource this column yet. We're just going to go through and fill in all of the time first. Next, editing. How long does it take you to edit? A lot of photographers average anywhere between 100 and 200 images per hour. This will be different for you and your business, and this is just the editing that you do for basic editing, so like white balance, exposure, not including retouching because I have a separate column for that. So if we say that a lot of photographers usually have about 600 to 800, and we'll say 500 to 800 images on average per wedding, we'll say that it takes about 6 hours to edit one wedding. Retouching, if you don't do any retouching for weddings, just leave this at 0. And if you do for things like just retouching the images that go in the album, just fill in how long that usually takes you. A lot of photographers will do just a little bit, like I said, for albums, for weddings, and we'll say that takes 1 hour. And how long? Next column is album design. How long does it take you to do an album design? If you use something like InDesign, it's going to take a little longer if you have to create all of the templates every single time. If you use something like Smart Albums, it'll be a lot less time. So we'll say it's 4 hours because I know a lot of photographers use InDesign to create their albums. The next column is product packaging and shipping. So once everything is done and your client has ordered all of their products, how long does it take you to put together and ship their products to them? It's usually not that much time, but a little bit. So let's say it takes about, 1 hour by the time you get everything packaged and go to the post office and drop everything off. Now, blogging. How long does it take you to create a blog post per every wedding that you do? A lot of photographers blog a lot of images for weddings because there's a lot to cover. So we'll say that this takes an average of 2 hours. Now, we want to go back and fill out the columns for whether you will or will not outsource. You'll notice that each of these has a little drop down to it. This will be where you make the decision if this is something you want to outsource. For culling, a lot of photographers do that themselves for weddings. Doesn't mean you have to, it's just a trend I've noticed. So we'll say that you will not outsource your culling. We'll say that you will outsource editing and retouching and album design, but that you'll still do your own product packaging and shipping, and you'll still do your own blogging. because I just need to, change it up a little bit for the example. What you would want to outsource may be completely different, and that's okay. Now, going over to the totals column, this cell is how much total time you're spending per the type of session over here. So for every wedding, you're spending 17 hours in post-production using the example numbers I have put in here. Every year, this means you're spending 340 hours in post-production for all of your 20 weddings. This also equates to about 8.5 40-hour work weeks, which is quite a lot of time. Now, this is where making the decision of what you want to outsource and what you don't want to outsource becomes relevant, because in this column, this is the sum of the hours of work that you would be outsourcing. So in this case, this is the sum of the hours you spend editing, retouching, doing album design. It does not include the hours you spend, packaging your products or culling or blogging, because in this example, you made the decision to do that yourself. So for every wedding, if you decide to outsource those things, you have a total of 11 hours of work that you would no longer be doing. If you add that up for an entire year, that's 220 hours of work you would have back in your life if you outsourced it, and that equates to 5.5 40-hour work weeks, which is pretty extensive by just outsourcing your editing and your retouching and your album design.